Oh, bring that back out there. Centre there.
Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to what I think is the fifth, from memory, fifth of the State of the Union podcasts. We're back here in our adopted home, courtesy of our good friend, Niall Fraser. Hello, Niall.
Oh, hello. I hope everyone's doing well. It's been another great week in politics.
It's been a
there's
great
a
week.
lot happening. And we've got another guest here as well.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm repeating myself or that we're cloning podcast members, but we have also, along with Niall Fraser, we have Niall Fraser Love. Hello,
yes.
Niall.
Greetings.
There you go.
Earthlings.
Earthlings indeed. So, yes, it's just complete coincidence. There is no family connection, whatever. They just happen to share a couple of names.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But we're all of the same mind. So we're going to kick off with a look at the last week in politics mainly, and also public events generally. So, what's caught your attention this week, Niall?
Well, straight away we've got the opening of the Olympics with the last week of the Euros.
Yep.
It's sort of faded into the past. In the rear view mirror, we can see it in the rear view mirror now. I know the Olympics is right in front of us, which is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And you watched the opening
I
ceremony
watched
this morning.
a good chunk of actually. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a. I painted myself a Japanese flag.
Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Quite often, I feel like my one part of my anatomy is like the Japanese flag when I've had a particularly bad curry. But that's
I thought you were going to say you were a kamikaze pilot.
not quite.
But I thought the ceremony was really, really good. You know, with people coming in with all their elaborate costumes. And they kept listing all these like wee tiny countries you never hear about, like
it's always the best.
Okay, this is nice.
It's like Virgin Isles, the UK, Virgin Isles, USA, Suriname, and
Yep.
oh yeah, and also the thing with the drones was real fun. With when they went into this Japanese sort of shape thing. Sorry, no, it's really hard to describe it. Then this real, I should say, in real time drones then came into a map of the world.
Nice.
Which was excellent, by the way.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, aye. It was magnificent.
Oh, they do. They leave no expense spared for these events. I mean, they really do want to make them.
There was a slight hiccup though with the opening ceremony guy or the director. He got sacked for a tweet or a joke about 10 years previously.
Yes,
It was a Holocaust joke, and it was, cannot have that.
Well,
Goodness.
Yes, well, which itself is, I suppose, slightly ironic because the 1948 Olympics, Germany and Japan were banned from showing up.
Oh, didn't realise that.
Yes, which sort of goes against the whole spirit of the Olympics, but whatever.
Maybe kind of understandable given their conduct
Granted,
in that decade.
It was fun. Had all these like Japanese kids doing this sort of mime thing, which I thought was interesting. Oh, by the way, when the Olympics I actually got to hold the Olympic torch when they had the UK.
Really?
Olympics.
Oh, you did you?
Actually, when they was running down the street, I and a bunch of other kids actually ran after the person, and I
Who was running?
I actually got
Running through the gorbals.
I got to grab it and cling onto it for a bit. So that's always my
You
wee.
just want the scrap metal.
Yes, that's always my wee claim to fame.
Well, it's terrific. It's great having the Olympics. I mean, it's everything that's good about sport, as we all know, and it is terrific that they've been staged this year. I think a lot of us didn't think they would.
Yeah,
it's
brilliant.
It's terrific. Much like the Open golf last week as well, which was of course put
that
back
was
a year.
Great tournament.
That was a terrific tournament. It was very, very good. There was a very worthy winner. So that's been great. Lots of good sport on. And this weekend's much the same. Rangers have got two friendlies. Brighton and Hove Albion followed by Real Madrid. Talk about the... I guess you'd say opposite ends of the spectrum of glamour clubs, but it's terrific that we're doing this. And we've got the Lions start tomorrow. The British and Irish Lions. First test match.
Thank God.
Fantastic. So it's going to be a good weekend, and the weather up here has been sensational for those of you who are looking in from elsewhere.
Us fair-headed people are getting absolutely blasted.
Oh yes.
Stay indoors.
Oh yeah.
I could show you something, but it's too gross. I tried to use a spray, a suntan spray, and the problem with those things is you can't see what you're spraying. So I got a few nice white stripes, and the rest that was terrible.
Like some sort of cheetah.
That was awful. It was awful.
Or when you sweat and it gets in your eyes.
That's it, exactly. But it's, like they say, the old joke, what's black and white and red all over? It used to be a newspaper. In my case, it's a sunburned penguin. So, I didn't do very well there. But it's been a great week, and the weather's been fantastic.
So this week in politics.
Yep.
Then. So this week's been dominated by the vaccine passport debate.
Indeed.
And I mean dominated. It's like every single day. It's constant.
It's the new Brexit, in other words.
Oh right, okay. They've rebranded it.
Yes.
Um,
I remember people I remember when they had the Harry and Meghan, people wanting, they're also in the news. Can we go back to them? And then before that was nothing but Brexit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I don't think anyone actually remembers what the news story of the day was before Brexit.
No,
It was,
it's true. Oh, it's been everywhere,
Yeah,
and it's
like-
still referenced everywhere. I mean, you'll be seeing these claims this week that there
shops.
are empty shelves in the shops because of Brexit. Guys, I have to tell you, I've been to a supermarket probably twice a day, at least every day this week. I haven't seen any empty shelves.
I did see empty shelves in Asda.
Asda, what kind of produce was missing?
I think it was either dairy or meat. It was like perishable stuff, not
Right, okay.
non-perishable.
Okay, all right.
And oddly enough, a lot of the alcohol, a lot of missing alcohol. I don't know if that's just because people were bored and buying it, but
Yeah.
and what else does this story go in?
there's that.
Yep.
Well, there was a wee bit of confusion. There was we're getting sort of mixed reports with people saying it's Brexit was the cause. We're getting people saying it's a pandemic.
Yep.
Another phrase that they just annoy me with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everything's has to be one word: a pandemic,
yes.
a Brexit, a Megxit. I mean, come on, just explain what it is that's happening.
Portmanteau, as they say in French.
What's that?
All right.
It's when you combine two words to make one.
Oh, I see.
Portmanteau.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, fine.
What your expertise in here? You're
Absolutely.
French linguist.
Well,
where we brought them.
not especially, but actually, I was quite good at fairly good at pronouncing French, but spelling it was just.
That's
I
another matter.
spelling in English was hard enough. In French, like it's just.
Because they don't pronounce all the letters, do they? So it doesn't really lend itself to intuitive.
like Javert.
Yeah, quite.
So taking back to the vaccine passports.
Yeah. Yep.
So the main story this week was got to be Labour coming out against the vaccine passports, and it felt. I mean, for me, it felt like a hand in a glove that Labour would go for
Yep.
the vaccine passports, and it's sort of going against the grain by coming out against it. And you mentioned earlier, Labour feels sort of directionless.
Yes, it does. Just there don't seem to be for anything anymore other than just not Tory. It's just I know people moaned about Jeremy Corbyn non-stop. At least we know what he's about. This is like going back to like who's that person they had after David Miliband? That nobody that no one remembers.
After Miliband.
Yeah, they had him. What was it? Owen something.
Oh, did they? I mean, did Miliband not? Was he not replaced directly by Corbyn? Wasn't there a
I'm pretty sure
leadership
there was
election?
something- I don't know. Well, look, it does feel like we're back to that.
Yeah.
Sort of that sort of coalition here of Labour.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Just floating around like a leaf in the wind.
I do agree. I mean, it's incredible to see the Labour Party coming up with an item of policy, really. I mean, that has a point here in as much as Corbyn came out with quite a radical manifesto and all the rest of it. I mean, pardon me. It wasn't really practical that it was ever going to be voted in, because it certainly wasn't costed. It was a bit like the SNP's independence proposal. There was no costing there at all. It was just, everything's going to be free, it's going to be wonderful. So that was all just hogwash, and it was seen as such, but at least now they come up with something, because you're right, what Niall was saying. You can't just say Boris Johnson, what a muppet. I mean, you can't do that.
You can't base a government on that.
Absolutely right.
Everyone
now.
already
Absolutely
knows
right.
Bojo is a dodo.
Yeah, exactly.
Bojo the dodo. No one. Everyone knows that. And
Quite, yeah. I mean, you know what you're getting with Johnson. He is a clown. He is a
shyster.
bozo. That's what he is. But at least he'd said, "I'm going to get Brexit done." He got Brexit done. So fair play to him. That's it. And you've got Mr. Lack of charisma, Keir Starmer, with his extraordinary head gestures. I don't know if you see him. He tries to
Is he a sir as well?
He's a knight, because he's the ex-director of public prosecutions. But you see him, he's so awkward in his. In the Commons at the dispatch box, he keeps doing this thing where he kind of leans his head forward. Like, what are you doing?
Remember,
I haven't actually noticed
he got kicked out of a pub.
Yeah, he did.
That was a classic clip. Get out of my park.
Exactly. And the
was
guy
like
was
his
getting
headers.
strong armed. The landlord was getting strong armed by the bouncers. He said,
Back-
"Take your hands off me."
But I mean, aren't Labour politicians supposed to be men of the people
That's
or
right.
women of the people?
Yep.
I mean, that should be their bread and butter,
yes.
talking to the populace.
100%. But it
But
wasn't to be.
Oh yeah, but the other thing is that Sir Keir just had no charisma.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, like, oh, no, it's not that I expect. I mean, other than George Galloway, I don't think there's really any politicians that could be like super charismatic. But you know, it's like, but granted, he's not as awful as Maybot. But the thing is that if Maybot was the Phantom Menace of public speaking, then Sir Keir is the Attack of the Clones of public speaking, and that
Okay.
like bad, but so boring. You just
Yep.
you just turn your brain off. Unlike
I don't think I've watched
Therese.
Attack of the Clones if I've fallen asleep.
But at least in the case of Maybot, she was memorably awful with her Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, she was
antics.
dreadful, yeah. She was dreadful, indeed, yeah.
Oh, she's
But
moved on to some sustainability.
that's her big thing now, yep,
Yeah.
indeed. Big into that. So, yes, we're seeing some of the old stagers in politics are beginning to make a little bit more splash. I saw William Hague today saying that he's saying something about the state should become interventionist. This is the complete opposite of what William Hague said when he was 16. He called on Margaret Thatcher to roll back the frontiers of the state. Sounds like he wants to roll them forward again now because he's saying the state should be interventionist.
Taking it back to the old vaccine passports, I think it was. I mean, the news was dominated by this week because it is probably the issue of our country now.
Yep.
If we go down the line of vaccine passports, it's a very, very dark path. And I think we should resist it with as much fervour as we can possibly muster.
This is like, this is like one of the. It's actually kind of. There's lots of countries that actually make you carry. Everyone has to carry like some sort of ID card
Yes.
at all times. It's but this is just something we've never had. I mean,
It's true. No, we've always...
Well, we're moving into the papers, please situation.
Absolutely right, your papers, and if you haven't got your papers...
And what's worse is it's a digital thing.
Yep.
So I can follow you anywhere.
True. Yeah,
Follow
very
you
much so.
anywhere.
It's a slippery slope when you start doing this. And of course, people have said this, and it's quite true. It is almost making a two-tier society. Even the people who have been vaccinated and people haven't. There might be a good reason why they haven't been vaccinated, but you can't discriminate against people because they haven't been vaccinated. Obviously, the more people get vaccinated, then the less chance there is of those people who are not being vaccinated picking up the disease because the rest of society. And this is the whole theory of a vaccine. But no, it's something we in All for Unity always said we would oppose. We certainly weren't going to be for vaccine passports. Absolutely not.
I mean, even the SNP have come out against it.
Yeah, well, that tells you something, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
But the SNP, they've excelled themselves again this week. They've still... They after being 100% focused on COVID and the recovery from COVID, we are now getting the new push for independence.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what this push for
I think
independence
it's a push for funding more than anything.
it's-
Because it's they need to find this 600 grand somewhere.
Exactly. So I don't know if you saw it, but I got into Private Eye, and Private Eye have absolutely ripped them apart. They've said
Oh, really?
£600,000 was gathered specifically for the next independence referendum campaign. It was for that, and it's been ring fenced. That's what they told us. Yeah. £600,000, but there's only £53,000 in their account. So people are saying to them, rightly, where's the money? It's easy. It's interwoven into the accounts. Interwoven where? It's either in the accounts.
Yep.
It's
That's like Father's head. That money was just resting in my
absolutely right. That's exactly right.
Just resting what?
Resting in his account. Exactly.
This really is just. I mean, this really is just.
It's quite.
It is absurd, isn't
It is
I
absurd.
mean, it really is just the Father Ted party at this point.
Absolutely.
Somehow.
So the money's missing. We all know that. And the people who've... And they keep saying this stuff about, we don't have numerous bank accounts, but this is ring-fenced and it's safe and we know the money is where it's sitting. Okay. And so if anybody asks for their money back on the basis that it's not being spent on the purpose for which it was intended, they get their money back from the SNP's main account. So why is it coming out of there then if this money's ring-fenced? Why do you think it's ring-fenced account? So it's clearly, what's happened there is clearly crooked. I have no
And
compunction
if
in
in the
saying
new
that.
treasurer is a new treasurer every week or something like that, just to
I
make
think
sure.
they called back an old treasurer from the old days, but let's not forget all the senior people who've stepped down, claiming, citing a lack of transparency. And where is Peter Murrell? he's still not about. We still haven't seen a single photograph of him. And
Hide and seek champion.
Exactly.
Actually, well, he really is the Dom Cum of the SNP. You know, it's just, I like, it's like they all small about Dom. And the thing is, like, I always say that, honestly, I mean, Johnson and Sturgeon really are two peas in a pod. You know, it's like, they're unelected advisors that no one knows anything about. You know, like, just shout, shouting bumper stickers instead of doing anything, waffling instead. You know, it's like, I mean,
there are similarities. You're quite right.
Oh yeah, I mean, like if you look at like political debates from like the 70s with like Tony Benn, you actually hear these things called facts and figures, and well, that's what that people will say things like that's not a fact, that's an inference. But nowadays it's like the Jeremy Kyle show show with ties instead of tracksuits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. Actually,
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Well done. It's true. You are hearing a lot of stuff passed off as fact, which is of course not facts at all. And you'd see them getting fact checked afterwards and pointed out as being completely fake. This is happening all the time, particularly with the SNP, and they just don't get challenged, particularly not by
Ever Media.
Exactly.
Ever Media is just totally silent.
The media is the same.
The only people that ever like stand up to the SNP are Andrew Neil and George Galloway.
True.
Who are both Scottish. Because the thing is, it's crystal clear it's like the English, Welsh, sort of Irish ones just don't take them, don't remotely take them seriously. Which is granted, which is granted semi-understandable. I mean, does anyone know who the First Minister of Wales is outside of Wales? Northern Ireland's had more. More for First Ministers than Paraguay's had coups, so...
But Northern Ireland, it has an awful lot has happened over there. Of course, they had a lot crazy stuff with the DUP, picking a new leader and then leaving and dumping him within 2 weeks. So, it's crazy times, guys, really. But it's nice to see, though, as you've said, Niall Senior, there's some direction, at least it seems to be in the Labour Party at last, because there's been nothing there at all, other than barely concealed infighting.
I'd actually have high hopes for Sir Keir, but boys, and why did that quickly sink? Not that I'm like some staunch Labour supporter or anything, but I just thought, it'll be like a breath of fresh air. And actually, one thing that does drive me kind of nuts about politics, and I'm pretty sure it drives a lot of under 40s, is that politicians are like. When you visit your grandparents to talk to you about, like their cousin who died 20 years ago, as if you're supposed to know who. That's what it's like. It's always blah, 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 Enoch Powell, blah, 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 Michael Foot, blah, 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 Warren G. Harding, blah. It's like...
Doesn't mean anything to
you. Exactly.
There's no connection to this generation.
Exactly. It's like...
And this is why in days and decades gone past, long before you ever got involved with politics now, the Labour Party stood for something in this country, and it traditionally, and no question, it stood for the rights of the working man and standing up for people who were maybe disadvantaged. That's what they stood for. The last 20 years, or the last 10 years in this country has been an absolute fiasco.
They've swapped the working class for the middle class.
Absolutely right. And now it's like they sneer at the working classes, and you saw that in the last election, didn't you?
Which, there needs to be a pole shift in Labour. I think they've started the process. They've started the process, at least with the vaccine passports, but if they keep going down this path, they're going to end up populist.
True.
They're going to end up populist because they'll see, oh wow, look at the amount of people who are responding to us coming out against vaccine passports. What else?
True.
And before you know it, it's populism.
I mean, not that really the Tories are particularly conservative. I mean,
of course they aren't.
It's like they're basically I'm conservative. I don't even necessarily mean like in like the American sense of the word of the whole the whole sex is just for procreation thing. I mean more like they seem to be I don't know what you describe them as other than neoliberal, I guess. Everyone's sort of neoliberal.
That's the accusation is levelled at both main parties that they are in fact just neoliberal. Which, I can see that, but I think it's essential in this country that you have a functioning opposition.
Yeah. Also, where
Of course,
where are the Lib Dems? I mean,
The Lib
honestly.
Dems, so they just won a by-election or a council
Yep.
by-election.
They
or
did,
whatever.
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, they
So,
did.
and they held by quite a large margin. But they've come out against vaccine passports from the beginning.
Oh yeah,
So
that is the sort of thing you'd expect from the Liberal Democrats.
Yes,
you know,
yep.
you know, because I mean, like before, because believe it or not, before the Lib Dems just became a punchline for raising tuition fees and
quite.
Jill Sturgeon, and Jill and Jill Flintstone. Going shouting at Piers Morgan,
Yeah.
I stand before you as Prime Minister Swinson the Great. So before that, they're actually the party that was against like the Snoopers Charter and
Yeah.
and I don't know. I actually feel sorry for the Lib Dems because whenever there's a golden opportunity when people hate the other two, they should in theory be the one that gets in because
Exactly.
because no one takes. Like the Greens are too niche, and UKIP's just a laughing stock.
Well, it's finished now, isn't it? UKIP. Yeah, exactly.
And the Reform Party, Reform/Brexit parties.
I think that's going up in popularity, I think. But it's, once this blows over, if it blows over, the vaccine passports, if these roll through, Reclaim and Reform or whatever, I think they're almost to the same, or one in the same. They will most likely gain in popularity once we see. Depending on what happens with the vaccine passport thing, that's why I thought it was such a great move by Labour doing this. That it actually gave me new hope for Labour. I've not seen Labour do anything right in the last 10 years.
Absolutely
almost.
right.
Absolutely nothing right. And in fact, they've been doing the opposite. They've been doing bad things. They've been, they push race and critical race theory more than any other party. But if they could be reformed, then anybody can be reformed.
True, but they need to do something. I mean, you saw Dawn Butler yesterday, I'm sure, getting herself thrown out. I mean, it was ridiculous. Just
it's a stunt.
Exactly, it's a stunt. That's all it is. If you want to get thrown out of the House of Commons, you just call somebody a liar. That's all you do, and they'll throw you out. So the woman was very good. The deputy, did you see her? The deputy speaker just said, like, I'm sure you weren't reflecting that. Give her 3 chances. She kept saying he's a liar, so she said, right, get out. Kicked her out. Quite right.
Like when that guy started shouting Dodgy Dave.
Yes, that's right, Dodgy Dave.
Skinner.
Well, that was actually laugh. Apparently, a lot of people were mad that the Victorian gentleman himself used the phrase yellow peril to call
Who was
the
this?
That's Mugby Smog.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, all right,
yes.
Good old
That's the whole point. They pin racism in every single word or every phrase. It's not right. And then it was the Guardian that complained about it, I think, and then Guardians have been citing yellow peril there before. It's come on.
For heaven's sake, exactly.
We shouldn't be nitpicking at every single word that someone says.
Absolutely right.
I mean, come on.
And there's going to be a massive backlash against this, I'm sure. I really am. All this new wokeness. But I noticed, I think, since we spoke last time, when James Dornan had just said something unforgivably crass and insensitive, the SNP apologised. The SNP apologised for James Dornan, he seems to be, I don't know what's wrong with him, but he keeps putting his foot in his mouth. But he's not.
Why is the SNP having to apologise for him?
Exactly.
Why the hell does he not come out and apologise?
Yep.
It's on him. It's on the SNP. It's on him personally.
Probably tell the audience what he did for those who aren't.
So he told another MP to go and rot in hell.
That's it. It was because James Dornan, of course, was the MSP for Glasgow. He found something that Jacob Rees-Mogg had said about in praise of the country's new border enforcement laws, and Dornan extraordinarily started talking about how Rees-Mogg should reflect on this next time he's at confession. So he made a lot of jibes about him being a Catholic, and then he said, "If there is a God, you will surely rot in hell." Now, how do you say that about a fellow respected public representative? And so Rees-Mogg just shook it off. He wasn't interested at all. But interestingly, Dornan didn't apologise. The SNP did, but Dornan admitted himself he's not Catholic, he's atheist. Well, in that case, isn't that a hate crime if you're sneering at somebody's religion?
That's fair
well, the
enough.
thing is, like,
Under Hums's
I-
legislation.
Oh yeah,
Anyway.
well, the thing about hate crime similar to blasphemy is
yeah, that's true. It is.
this
Yes,
is
I agree with
It's
that.
like, the thing is, like, just about someone, basically every other religion are atheism's blasphemous to another. Like,
Yeah, true.
Yeah, of course.
Like, let's take a really basic example. Like the idea that the idea of God having a son is blasphemous to Jews and Muslims, but and and also and then of course there's other things like the more Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox, Muslims believe Jesus was immaculate conception. The Mormons believe God took human form and had sex with Mary, which is blasphemous to them. No, I'm not making that up. That
I
is
know. I
actually-
believe you. No, I believe what you're saying.
or stuff like or then like things like it's like things like eating, we eat cows. That's blasphemous to Hindus.
Yep.
It's like.
It's going to be almost impossible to enforce this hate crime thing
Of
because
course.
it's going to get to the stage
I know.
that a Muslim could see a Bible and say I'm offended by that, you
Yeah.
apostate or whatever. I mean, it's just
It's never going to work. It's
No, it's not.
unworkable.
It's-
It was always unworkable.
Well, exactly. Ridiculous.
From the beginning, it was always unworkable, and yet they pressed on anyway.
Yep, it's ludicrous.
Oh,
So
it is ludicrous.
This is why when I'm asked by people now, okay, what policies do you have now? What would you do what would you have done had you been elected? First thing I would have done would have been to move to repeal this appalling legislation.
Of course, and the irony is that if by some miracle Scotland was allowed back in the EU,
Yep.
then of course people could appeal to the European Brussels court
True,
and
yep.
get that overturned.
Yep.
So it's like, it's like.
That's an interesting.
Oh yeah,
prospect,
it's
then.
like it's just like
But-
it's amazing how I don't know, the SNP sort of approach to independence is just so. How do you say? It's just so intellectual.
Delusional.
It's just,
Intellectually lacking.
no, not even that. It's just incoherent.
Yeah, well, that's
it's like,
true,
It's like
yeah.
it's like a honestly, it's
Yep.
it's like a George Lucas script. It's it's like it's just so like it's just got like 100 different contradictions. Like
Yeah.
now, here's
Yeah.
the thing: if the SNP wanted, because the thing is like. It's got, so the SPL's prattle on about sovereignty this, and, now sovereignty means to be, now if you're sovereign, it means you're a political entity unit that makes its own laws, you're the highest authority.
Yep.
So it'd be like the King of France was the sovereign, because,
Right.
he could
Yeah.
make any law he wanted. As now we do that with countries, like, in the UK we have sovereignty of Parliament.
Yes, we do.
Yes, so the SNP moans that Westminster makes laws they can't change, but then they want to join
EU,
Brussels,
which would be the exact same case.
Yes, which would make different laws that they can't.
Absolutely right.
Now they wanted to argue one union is better than the other.
Well, that's-
it's
then fine.
That's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. I mean, I mean, a lot of people would disagree, but that's a coherent position
For sure.
Yep.
like for example, when Texas used to be part of Mexico.
Yeah, so it did.
Yes, so it was under the, I don't know, so it left.
Mexican sovereignty or whatever.
Yes. So and then it had its own wee sort of revolution against Mexico, and then after about a year of being its own country, it then joined the United States.
Yeah.
Yes. So it now so Texas was not was not independent as part of the United States. It was sovereign. It ceded its
Yeah.
sovereignty to Washington.
Absolutely right.
Now, of course, obviously, so this is like the SNP is a similar thing, and now obviously, plus I'd imagine, as a federal state in America, they probably had more lawmaking powers than
Yeah.
under the Mexican tin pot dictator of the week. But
Well, you would assume so, yes.
yeah, but but it's like the same thing. Same thing. So it's like. Like they don't. It's just so unbelievably contradictory. It's like.
Yeah, it is. It's shockingly contradictory.
Yeah.
That it's
like-
incoherent,
Oh, yeah.
it's contradictory, it's ridiculous, and it's farcical, rolled into one ball and
it-
thrown
oh,
in
yeah.
the bin.
Absolutely.
it's a bit
Aye,
like-
they don't know what they're doing.
It has no
like-
credibility.
like-
They're,
yeah,
they're
it's
crabs
like-
in a bucket
Oh,
climbing
yeah.
over each other.
Yep.
It's like it's like trying to make I don't know. It's like trying to make a round square, or
Yep.
it's like
Oh, it's like a kid trying to put the square
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
I-
circle and they just can't get it.
Yeah, it's like
next year I'll be able to. Honestly, next year.
No,
keep
I-
voting
no,
for
I'll
me.
tell
I'll
you
be able
what.
to do it next
Yeah.
year.
it's like someone. All right, no, I'll tell you what it's like. It's a bit like their policy is a bit like dippy. It's a bit like trying to argue that a broccoli McFlurry counts as healthy eating. You know, it's like
right, okay.
Well, I like it. Yeah, I'm not sure that would be a big
Right, well, we're moving swiftly on. So I did read an article this week. Can't remember who wrote it, but it did say that Douglas Ross
Yep.
was going to be the next First Minister.
Liz Truss wrote the
Liz
article.
Truss.
Liz Truss wrote it. She's, yes.
So she is, I seen she's walking up some trade deals for us.
Yep.
yes, political genius Douglas Ross.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
stand our own Conservative candidate, and again, let's ruin what's the name, Star Wars' chance to get rid of the total sturgeon by stand my own zero chance hope candidate. It's like.
They did the same in East Lothian. In East Lothian, it was the same.
So how did she get to the conclusion that Douglas Ross will ever be the next First Minister?
This just isn't going to happen, guys, is it? It's not going to happen. You look at this. We've talked about this several times in this podcast. The Conservatives have been losing elections in Scotland since the 1950s. That's 66 years.
Well, if they wanted to win, they could just talk to us.
Absolutely.
And we would guide them into the victory.
Exactly.
And the thing is, believe it, the Conservatives are the only party to ever win more than half the vote in Scotland.
That's true. That is true.
I mean, it's true.
Granted, comparing Douglas Ross to Winston Churchill is a bit like, it's a bit like comparing a Francis de Goya painting to the drawing of the chicken on a box of Kellogg's cornflakes, but.
Wow, nice. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't
Your
know
metaphors are really good, to be honest.
Metaphors are first class indeed. But Douglas Ross may be First Minister in the event that Nicola Sturgeon does it until the day she retires. And then he takes over for 6 months or something during the big, massive round.
Interim,
exactly. But I cannot see. I mean, Douglas Ross, First Minister. How's that going to happen? Let's just remind ourselves. In the last election, the Conservatives stood in all 73 constituency seats, and they won 5. Labour stood in all 73 and they won 2.
Yes.
The Lib Dems stood in all 73 and they won 4. That's a total of 11.
Absolutely.
So in other words, the Lib Dems thrashed at Labour until
They did. They got double the number of seats Labour got.
I mean, there's more chance of fizzing, Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister.
No, you're right, but
I think he's single-handedly saved GB News from the debacle last week with this guy taking the knee and getting suspended, then leaving. So I think Nigel's actually come back and single-handedly saved GB News to my eyes.
I would agree with that. I think they were going nowhere. They made a great start, but there were some technical difficulties which were very, very disappointing.
But that's to be
expected,
problems,
exactly. But to have such a spectacular flop in their policy just seemed so ridiculous early on. So Nigel Farage, to his credit, came on and he has done a good job so
He's
far.
Highlighted more in the last 4 days. Than the BBC and Sky News have done in 4 years. It's nuts. He's right on the border, capturing the footage, hundreds of migrants coming across day in, day out, and the French vessels are escorting them in. And obviously there's escorting them in because they don't want them either. Obviously.
It's ludicrous. And
I do, and yes, which is yes, and of course, and this is what happens when you insist the rest of the planet learns English, isn't it?
Well,
they don't want to. Who outside of Hungary speaks Hungarian? That isn't
I know what you're saying.
I'll tell you who does. The guy in Blade Runner who spoke to the guy. They say, this is this clip for film buffs. Okay, just in case anyone's listening. In the film Blade Runner, have you seen Blade Runner?
Of course I have.
When Neff, the guy's Neff, goes up and speaks to him and says something like, starts gibbering to him, and apparently he's actually speaking Hungarian, and he says to him, "You horse cock, so you think, but you are the Blade Runner." That's what he says. So if you play that in Hungary, that clip, everyone in the audience is laughing because he thinks that's the line. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude, but that's apparently what it means. So in answer to Niall's question, who speaks Hungarian outside of Hungary? Nobody except one character in a film in 1983, and that's it. So you're right. So people will want to come to the UK.
Oh yes,
partially because of the language. You're right.
You could find. With the invention of Facebook, you could find you could chat to someone from,
Of course.
language is the only barrier, and unless they're in North Korea, but
Yeah.
like you could chat to someone from, they speak English. You could chat to someone from Japan, from Russia, from Sweden, from Peru, anywhere.
Yes, you can. You're absolutely right. Yep, you're right, indeed. But so the point we were making there was the SNP just want to swap their independence. Their position in one union.
Yeah.
They want, in this drive for independence, they want to be part of another equally.
It's always
union.
the shield, the independence.
it's
You know
true.
it's that. It's
Yeah.
any time they're under fire.
Yep.
Let's fight behind independence.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course-
and it's all our problems just dissolve away.
Here's another one of their talking points that actually I actually always just laugh at, which is well, Scotland voted to be in the EU. It's like, so should stay in the EU. Okay, by that logic, since Shetland and the Western Isles voted were the only part of the UK to vote not to join in the EU in 1975,
That's
that means
true.
they shouldn't have been in. And likewise, if we go even further, in Switzerland they had a referendum, and the French-speaking bit voted to join, but the German, Italian, and the Romanche, I think it's called, voted no. So does that mean the French bit should have been in the EU, but not the?
Very good question.
Or the other, or like in Norway and Sweden, the sovereign parts voted to join, but Lapland didn't, and of course.
So Santa shouldn't be in. That's what I was saying.
Exactly.
Santa, they want to be in the EU.
So it's like, and the thing is, I'm like, compared to the rest of Sweden, the Laps have a completely different language, culture, religion, from
indeed.
the rest. Yeah, and that's of course before, and that's of course another thing. And of course, if you do the whole the other thing they do when they shout, Scotland didn't vote for Boris Johnson. It's like, well, does that mean that Nicola Sturgeon isn't the first ministerialness doesn't apply to the Borders area
exactly.
and Galloway, and
Yep.
it's like,
Yeah, I know.
like you see how dumb that argument is.
It is, it's ludicrous.
It's Joe Biden, not the president of Texas,
Yeah,
only
quite.
the Texas of California. And,
It's like this exactly. And people say this thing about Scotland voted 62 to 38
Yeah.
in favour of staying in. And they say this is disgraceful. We're being dragged out of Europe, dragged off a cliff face. By whom? By London. Really, that's interesting because London voted 61-39
Yeah,
to stay in as
exactly.
well. Guys,
Exactly.
come on, let's
And even then, we voted to stay in the union too.
Exactly.
So I mean, we're going to
Absolutely.
get dragged
Yeah.
out of one
Yeah.
union,
Yeah.
and then so
And
you
here's
can't
another,
have that
and here's
argument.
another thing. Like they always like to play the whole. Or the other thing they do is like they'll say they'll start moaning about how the Tories are a bunch of rich snobs that don't understand. Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're buying 9-bedroom
Yeah.
houses.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I mean,
Kate
the thing is,
Forbes
like-
is, she's got a new 9-bedroom home. I think. Who
don't
stays
forget-
with this lassie?
I
I mean, it's
forget
9 bedrooms.
The Seven Dwarfs. It's no like.
Yes, quite,
And then
yeah.
of course you've got, Ian Blackford, the
Yeah,
Laird.
yeah.
Or my
Exactly.
personal,
I cannot stand that. man.
it's like when they go. And the thing is, like the EU is just as neoliberal as the Tories. I mean, like, and
Yeah, of course they are.
I mean that Guy Verhofstadt, that's just, is just the David Cameron of Belgium. That
Yeah.
I mean, Ursula von der Leyen. Well, and as we can tell, because she has von in her name, means she's married to an aristocrat.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
So it
If
means-
someone in German has von in their name, it means they're a junker or married to a junker.
Okay.
Yeah, junk is what they call their equivalent of lords and ladies.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Actually, this is why in Austria it's illegal.
getting a wee education here.
Actually, that's why in Austria it's illegal to actually have von in your name.
Oh, interesting.
Because they abolished the aristocracy after World War One, but Germany didn't. Yeah, so that's a fun little fact for you.
Wonderful. Well
Yeah,
done.
but of course, and another thing that so that's another point of double standards. And how can they possibly think the EU would support separatism when, if Guy Verhofstadt believes in separatism, why at 10 years as Prime Minister of Belgium, how many referendums did he give Flanders?
Well, yeah.
That's right, 0. So I mean, people talk about Spanish veto. Well, it's not just Spain because the Basque and Catalonia includes France.
So it does.
So if so Spain breaks up, so does France. Do you think Macron wants that? Do you think Guy wants Belgium to split in two? Do you think do you think Angela Merkel wants Germany to be partitioned for the third time? Because Bavaria wants out, or there's Saarland where they have their own
we're
language.
veering sort of way off.
We are.
You know,
I
like your.
But the point is right. The point is, the EU have got this. It appears the EU countries would like to punish Britain a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah,
saying,
course.
"Oh, we're going to do something to embarrass you," and all this. That's fine. But now they have to, if you like, balance that.
Yeah.
But with not allowing future secession attempts, just to say, okay, we're breaking away, and we want to stay in. That's not going to happen, guys. We know it's not going to happen. So it's a myth. It's a fantasy. This idea that Scotland can join the EU. I've seen an interview with Swinney around the time of the independence, the Scottish independence referendum.
John Swinney.
Yeah, and when he was asked by Andrew Neil, so what happens if Scotland becomes votes for independence? Will you just stay in the EU if Brexit happens? Oh yeah, we'll just stay in. Yeah, we won't. No, they won't tell us to leave. We can just stay in. So the rest of the UK will leave, but Scotland will stay in. Oh, how did that work out for you then, John? I mean, it's just utter hogwash.
It's like, exactly. I mean, the EU is about integration. So countries splitting up is the opposite of that, and this is why none of them can actually support separatism, because they just. I mean, the only country that could possibly benefit is maybe the Netherlands if they get to gobble up Flanders. But even Norway and Sweden, there are people in Lapland who want their own country. There's an island in Finland that wants to join. It's like. I
know we're veering right off topic. The only thing that I'm seeing the EU breaking up, I'm seeing mass protests all across the European Union now, and it's all along the same thing that our main argument is vaccine passports. I mean, it's the issue of our time. You can see it right across Europe. Italy's got huge protests. I seen him the day. It was like a candle vigil at midnight or something like that.
There's actually protests have re-erupted
in France, the yellow jackets are back.
There's riots breaking out in Iran. There's an uprising in Belarus. There's also some stuff in Haiti as well.
There's another failed assassination attempt as well. So there's what country was it again?
Was it the president of Haiti? No,
he was successfully assassinated, but there was a failed assassination attempt just the other day.
Was it an African country? I can't remember.
I want to say Burundi, but
could be. Goodness. Wild times, guys.
I know we're in crazy times.
Absolutely.
I know it does feel rather odd. But we're one high-profile assassination away from something really quite dark.
That is a genuinely scary thought. You're right. You're right.
And tempers are already flaring. People can already feel something in the air or the pressure. So it is. But getting back to Labour, thank God for at least them having the sense to guide at least their moral compasses. There's something wrong with this.
And here's one of my little predictions. So I actually don't think the coalition era is actually over, because after like in 2010 we had Condemn coalition, and then of course we had the Solid Tories for about 18 months before Theresa May threw it in the trash over dementia tax.
That's right.
And the most hilariously self-harming thing I've ever seen. And then, of course, she had her own pathetic coalition with the DUP, who I genuinely had never heard of before. I think I'm sorry, but most people outside of Ireland would have no idea who they are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, unless you follow politics.
But it's a bit like, it's a bit like. But that's just
Yeah, it was ill-fated that from the start. Unfortunately,
but Johnson only got a majority by backing Brexit and stealing Labour seats from the north. But now that Brexit's done, what does Northumbria have? Why would Northumbria keep voting Tory now that they've got what they want?
Well, it's an interesting point, but
so I think you could easily go back to sort of coalitions and confidence and supply, because the north one was, north of England was desperate for Brexit, and they've got it. So for many of them, Johnson's already outlived.
Well, it's the
his
same
usefulness.
argument. It's sort of the same argument. It's like, what would happen to Scotland if we got independence?
Yeah.
Do you think the SNP is going to disappear? No, I don't
Not
think
a
so.
chance.
I do not
Oh, yeah.
think so.
God,
they're
no.
going to,
Oh, yeah.
they're clinging on with the, like
they'd be
limpets. They won't let go.
They'd be like that, a Revolutionary Party of Mexico, got out of power for like 70 years.
Probably, yeah. Because some revolution that, isn't it? Yeah. Lasting 70 years. My goodness.
Right, so we've covered the Olympics. That
Yep.
was fantastic.
That was good.
The drone globe was
Oh, yeah.
triggering all the fly earthers.
Oh, yeah.
That was brilliant. We've got the Labour coming out against
yes.
the vaccine passports. Thank God for even
Oh, yes.
going down that route. I did not expect it. It was
yeah,
a bolt
well,
for the blue, and it was really quite amazing, actually.
Actually, is Jeremy Corbyn still kicked out of Labour?
He is still
Yes.
suspended, yes, he is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still arguing about definitions of anti-Semitism and stuff.
It's always going to be mired.
Yeah.
It is going to be.
It's always there's that shadow covered Labour, and I don't think that's going away
I don't think
unless there's huge reformation. And I'm not sure if Sir Keir Starmer can get it done.
Oh, yes.
But even the inkling that they're not going to go for vaccine passports shows me that they're not completely dead.
Oh yeah, and
True, yeah,
They're not
true.
completely
And
dead.
we really could do with a strong Labour Party because it's only when you had a strong Labour Party in Scotland that
The Tories are forced into themselves. They're forced to be
Right.
conservatives again.
absolutely right.
oh yeah, so not to mention even like the Tory party is ripping itself apart over vaccine passports.
Tory parties, at least
Yeah.
these days, it's got
Of
fewer.
course there is. This will cause rebellion in every party.
Yeah, well,
oh yeah, I mean like.
but at least they're not tearing themselves to bits over Europe any longer. Thank heavens.
Yeah,
I mean,
Oh yeah, actually,
I love that it's domestic policy.
yes,
you know what I mean?
Right.
well, mind you, the EU. I remember reading this great article in the Independent where it was basically how the EU basically played a role in the death of basically the political career of nearly every prime minister from Ted Heath to Theresa May, apart from Tony Blair.
apart from Blair, yeah.
Yes, who lost it by invading Iraq.
Yeah, but who
Oh yeah, but it's like 'cause,
who is an advocate for passports,
Oh, yes.
vaccine
Oh, yes, 'cause,
passports, who wants everyone to be vaccinated.
Heath got booted out over
Europe,
Europe.
so he
Anything
did.
that Tony
Callahan
Blair
got-
comes
yeah,
up with, you just turn 180
Oh, yeah.
degrees in that direction,
Oh,
and
yes,
you'll be going the
no,
right way.
no,
Absolutely
no,
right.
'Cause I just don't
You know,
believe a word that comes
not
out of that
a
guy's mouth.
single
Not
word.
a single
No.
muttering.
No.
Even if it was psychobabble,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't. Do not trust that guy as far as
and the funniest thing is that when David Cameron became the Tory party leader in 2006, he actually told his colleagues, and I quote, they must, quote, stop banging on about Europe. And of course,
How
that's
did that
the
work
thing.
out for you,
Oh,
mate?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing that killed his career. I mean, like,
Absolutely.
I mean, like a small part of me does have a teensy bit of sympathy for Cameron because it's like, so it's like he becomes prime minister, but he keeps having to water down all his policies thanks to Nick Clegg. So he gets like one, so he gets in and so he wins, and then everyone goes, because before the excuse was, oh, Clegg won't let me. Well, Clegg's gone. Yeah. All right, fine. We'll have a referendum, which he was so confident that he'd win, and that he just lost. Like he just dropped
they
the
were going to
ball.
lose that. No,
Oh, yeah,
they had
sure,
no
it was
idea
like-
they were losing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, the sheer, and then of course, and then thanks to Alex Salmond stepping down after losing the Scottish the independence referendum, Cameron basically had to resign, had to quit. So
Yeah, I suppose so. Oh, he did have to quit. He had no choice,
I mean,
really.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, he could have at least. I mean, like, if he had any sense, he'd have at least like stuck that in like the last year in office or something. Make up.
Yep, true.
Right, so we'll go into the process of wrapping up. We'll do
Yep.
a final 5 minutes.
Yep.
Olympics, Labour.
Yep.
Indy, are you rushing to the bookies to put a bet on for Douglas Ross going to be the next First Minister?
Do you know,
Are
I think-
can you?
I think
I
I'll
can
just
hear.
wait.
I can hear the car spinning right up.
Oh, yeah.
there.
Oh yeah.
no.
I mean,
Who are you
You know.
kidding me? Douglas, mate,
I mean, God,
please,
this is
come
like-
on.
I mean, it really has been. I mean, it's
I
Douglas
think
Ross.
he's-
In fact, I
you
think.
describe him as an invisible man, eh?
No, that
Yep.
was Security.
Right,
Oh,
okay.
right,
No,
okay.
I'll tell you what. I actually think. Do you remember the Slovene in Doctor Who?
I
Where,
do,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. When they unzip their foreheads and the green alien. Like, I have to expect Douglas Ross is going to unzip his forehead, and Joe Swinson's going to climb out the skin, going. Because it seems to be that sort of, level.
Yeah,
Or no, it's like
it's
like even
extremely
Paul-
lame, honestly.
Oh, it's
Yep.
like, even Paul. I mean, and the thing is, I mean, even Paul. I mean, at least Paul Nuttall's funny with his, nonsense about. What was that ridiculous lie that Nuttall was spouting about, like his friend was killed in some tragedy?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's like, I mean,
That's,
for God's sake,
it's
do
like
you have-
stolen valor. or something.
Exactly.
like this is the sort
Nonsense.
Oh yes, it's like this is the sort of thing that like Mr. Burns would do in The Simpsons. Where it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a
Yep.
joke. Like it's like. I mean,
I
it made
just
Prince
think it's so
Andrew.
lame.
Oh yeah, I mean, that made Prince Andrew's stories about never wearing a tie and not
And he's
sweating.
never, he can't sweat.
Oh yeah, I mean that made that. Jesse
I'd like to see
Smollett.
him in
it's
Scotland over the last week.
Yeah,
I
exactly,
guarantee the guy would be sweating
Oh, yeah.
buckets.
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually got a rare disorder. I
yeah.
can't sweat.
Oh, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
What is that? Your blue blood?
yeah.
Stopping that.
Oh, yeah,
What's
it's like-
actually happening?
Oh yeah, it's a bit like saying.
What sort of excuse
Oh, yeah.
is that?
No, it's a bit
Seriously.
like boasting. It's a
Awful.
bit like saying, it's a bit like someone saying, "I've got 10 toes on each foot," despite wearing normal shoes. Say, okay,
Yep.
shoes and socks off. Let's see.
Yep.
I can't. They're glued on. It's like
No, it's
Yep.
right. Where were you eating 10 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to tell me exactly what restaurant, where it was 10 years ago. And he's
Pizza
like,
Express
I was
in
at Pizza
Woking.
Express, Woking,
That's it,
and no one can
Oh, yeah.
tell me otherwise. In fact,
yeah.
I've kept the receipt,
Oh yes.
and I've claimed it back.
Mate.
Actually, I mean, it really. And the thing is, like, I mean, Andrew really is, the black sheep of the royal family. Because
Big
like
time.
all the. Like if you actually look at if you look at interviews with Charles or Anne or any of the others, they actually do despite being royalty, they do actually come across as like empathetic.
So they do, yeah.
Like real people who actually they often
Well, they are actually real
yeah,
people.
I know,
aye.
but they actually seem to have a better understanding of the real
they seem
world
to-
than
they-
most.
they've spent time around the commoners a lot,
They seem to actually. I genuinely think the Queen probably has a better understanding of the masses than most of the elected MPs,
Yeah,
which
I
is
would probably
rather.
agree with you.
Could totally agree
Well,
with
it's
that.
the wisdom of seeing it all
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
There is extreme wisdom
yeah.
in the old age
yeah.
if you can keep your mind as well.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit. It's a bit like things like going to. It's a bit like like the royal family visiting families that got bombed during the Blitz.
Sure.
I mean, like, could you really ever? Could you really ever imagine? Have Johnson or Trump or the like, doing that?
No, Trump visited to Florida.
All right, okay.
Trump's done all
Okay,
that.
okay.
I'm a Trump fan.
All right.
So I'll defend him to the so he did. He surveyed a lot of the California wildfires.
Yeah,
He went
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
He went
but
to the cyclone when a cyclone hit.
But,
So he does go to the disaster zones.
I could see Johnson going, but he'd probably then just say something tasteless. So it's like, just
Boris would, yeah, he would actually. He'd say something stupid. Yeah,
I say something like,
How did this happen?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And how many people are buried under there? It does seem he is prone to gaffes,
Oh, yeah.
but I don't mind that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Everyone's prone to the gaff
yeah.
now and again.
Yeah, but it's just more-
it's endless with Boris.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Oh, yeah, it's
that's
just
part of his charm as
Yeah,
well.
to an
he is,
extent
he
it
is
is, yeah.
weirdly charming.
Bumbling
Actually,
yeah.
oaf, yes, that's what he's like.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose something that I don't normally agree with Piers Morgan, but he did say that I feel like Johnson was probably fine in normal times, but with something like a massive crisis like a pandemic, you do probably need someone who's a bit more how do you
Yes.
say sober, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Possibly.
that's a good one.
That's a good word indeed,
Yes.
Right, so I'm just going to race away and put a bet on Douglas Ross being the next First Minister.
Well, I hope you get
or I
some
may
really good
not.
odds.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I think I'm washing my hair that day.
More chance of him becoming a fully fledged referee rather than a linesman, I think.
Is he still not made the leap to for linesman and referee?
I've only ever seen him as a liner, so I've never seen him on the pitch as a ref. I don't know whether maybe he is, I don't know. Because they call them assistant referees these days, don't they? So
it's a bit like
usually it's referees.
Oh yes, I mean,
see someone fishing in line, I don't know.
Douglas Ross boasting about being like I don't know, the most popular Scottish Tory leader in decades is a bit like it's a bit like I know it's a bit like Bilbo Baggins boasting he's the world's tallest hobbit.
Yeah,
it's
like
not
a high, not particularly high bar, is it? No.
It's like.
So is Douglas saying he's more popular already than Ruth Davidson? Then is that what he's saying?
Probably.
Ruth Davidson did get her awardship this week.
She did.
Didn't she?
Wasn't that wonderful to see?
I did like her outfit actually.
Was she looking good?
She looked regal.
That's one thing. Actually, that is one thing.
And it triggered the Nats.
It certainly did.
Triggered the SNP to no end.
That's actually one thing I will actually give. I will give Nicola Sturgeon. She does always, fashion wise, she does always appear, professional and presentable. I mean, especially compared to especially compared to like Theresa May with the clothes that were like 3 sizes too big.
And the dancing. Remember the dancing?
the
Theresa
robot
May.
Please.
Apparently Theresa May has diabetes and used to be really fat.
That's true.
So
She
has.
Is that right?
She's definitely diabetic.
So she dieted herself thin, but apparently didn't decide to buy new clothes. So she still seems to be wearing
her old her fat clothes, so to speak.
And would you believe that Hillary Clinton's actually a decade older than Theresa?
You wouldn't think it.
Yeah, especially when Theresa looks like a
anyway, we're veering away again.
We are indeed.
Your mind just veering on.
It definitely goes macro here now, doesn't it? It definitely goes big picture.
So it's been a fantastic week. We had the Olympics. I hope everyone's enjoying it.
Yep.
If you want to comment and tell me what your favourite event is in the Olympics. What's your favourite event in the Olympics?
Probably the gymnastics.
Quick gymnastics.
I go for the men's middle distance, 1500, 800. I love watching that.
I like the synchronised diving for some reason.
Really?
Because I love seeing either the two people and it's perfect.
You love all that.
I love that.
Well, is Tom Daley in the Olympics?
Yeah, he's definitely very talented. Very talented.
Actually, it does leave me. I don't get why people make fun of Andy Murray for being a terrible speaker. It's like,
he's Scottish.
Yeah, but he's supposed to. It's like
he's already coming for a defensive position.
Yeah, but the guy he's there to play tennis.
He's fantastic.
He's not there to he's not there to deliver the Gettysburg
No, he's not.
Address.
No, he's not. You're right.
That's like complaining about that's like saying a ballet dancer has crushed up toes. It's like that's not relevant.
Not relevant. You're right.
Right. So tell us your favourite event in the Olympics. Let us know. Give me the odds that you would lay if you're a bookie on Douglas Ross becoming the next First Minister, and I might put a wee bet on you.
I think they'll pretty much say name your odds, name your own odds now.
And give me your input on Labour coming out against vaccine passports. That's the main thing that happened this week. And we'll let David wrap it up.
Yep. Okay. So yes, it's been an unusual start to the sporting summer because the weather in Scotland is as good as it's been, I think, for any time. I don't know how long. At the start of last summer was quite good too. But the weather's great, so we're all enjoying it. I'm suntanned out on the golf course all the time, and it's wonderful. But we're going to keep the pressure on with these podcasts. We have to keep highlighting the sheer incompetence, ineptitude and mendacity of the nationalists because they are clearly untrue what they say. We're going to incorporate more new blood like Niall here as we go on. Jean Ann will be with us again very soon. But the pressure will very much continue. You will be hearing some news shortly about the, and I mean shortly in the next few weeks, about what's going to happen for next year's local election. So watch out for that. So in terms of like the All for Unity and the type of platform on which we stood in May just gone.
Oh, yeah.
But to wrap up for this week, thanks again to Niall for the premises, for providing the premises. It's wonderful, fantastic to be here. Thanks to Niall Jr. for joining us today, and we'll be back hopefully next week with more. So from now,
It's goodbye from Niall.
and from the other Niall,
Bye bye.
and from me too. Thanks very much for watching, guys. And we'll
Thanks very
speak
much.
to you soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye bye. Bye bye.